I'm here today to ask Janet a little bit about this 4-year process that we went through to develop a book called Traveling Through Time, a That Family Story. And it really has been a journey, traveling through time. Well, I think first I'd like to say thank you to Mary, because without Mary, I never would have been able to do this. And as she said, I had a house, well, so did my sister, of remnants of our past. And pulling it together seemed, what do I want to say? It seemed a task that I could never get completed on my own. I just didn't even know where to start. So when we started with the pictures and with pointing out to Mary all the things that I had, and that the focus really of my getting started on this was that our great-great-grandfather, Cornelius Humphrey Pratt, was a clipper captain, and he sailed from Weymouth, Massachusetts for over 25 years, I believe, around both horns, back to China, over to the Mediterranean, around the Caribbean. He had a very interesting past, and we had a lot of his things that he brought from China, that he had in Weymouth, Massachusetts. And so he was the impetus to me to get started with this, because I thought, if I don't do this, my sister is so consumed with so many things. And I wanted to do this for our family, to get it down on paper, because I didn't know that it was going to get carried on. This piece is Cornelius's writing desk, which he took with him on the ship, we're certain. And it's sitting on top of his traveling trunk that I had restored, which probably carried his clothes and his possessions. But the desk opens up, and important papers were stored in here. And then we wrote on it, and it still contains inkwell and some of the writing instruments, as well as, I don't know what all of these things are. Oh, here's another inkwell. And what's in here? Nothing. So he would write on this surface. He's kept his logs daily, what the weather was like, what longitude, latitude. I've taken papers out of here, but there are papers that were kept. Oh, this is just, look at the writing. I can't read it. Yeah, it's a very, very meticulous recording of what was going on. He's in the Indian Ocean here. He's in the banks of Florida, the Gulf, North Sea, Mediterranean. This is chart South Atlantic Ocean. And here's the hair I was talking about. Here's Rebecca, mother's hair, Josiah H. Pratt. His mother was Rebecca Badger Leach Pratt. So there's that hair for the blondish red. But they kept these wonderful, wonderful treasures. Another thing I didn't say about Cornelius was he was inducted into the Boston Marine Society, which was a prestigious thing in 1853. I have the honor to inform you that at quarter meeting of the Boston Marine Society on Tuesday, August 1852, you were unanimously elected a member. So he became a member of the Boston Marine Society, and my son Jim has that certificate in his house, as he was a sailor. Jim sailed in sailing in Alaska. Here's another little bound book where here's with Cornelius. Sermons. Yeah. Oh, right. I didn't talk about the sermons. As a captain of a ship, you were also the minister to the people on the Corby. You were it. So you buried people, and he died on the ship on the way. You were the minister, and he gave sermons, and the sermons were, to me, very interesting because they were certainly they were Old Testament. Great fear of the sea, great fear of, retribution if you didn't do what you're supposed to do. They were not loving. Oh, this is just bill of sale for a coat that is my grandmother, which I have up there. What do you do with things like that? Janet, one of the other things, too, is that as we went through things, and you said, what do I do with this? We connected with the Pratt's mansion. Right. Can you tell a little bit about that? Sure. That house was just down the street from the Pabst mansion. And the Pabst was looking to furnish a new bedroom for a child, or for a woman, actually, on the third floor, I believe. And so they have some of the furniture that we had here, and I'd like to be able to give more of it to somebody who would want it. So I'm working on that. But the Pabst mansion was very interested in the fact that the house was there. It is now where Marquette University is. This is Josiah Pratt, 1890. So these aren't the really old ones, but they wrote their names in them. Sometimes they wrote comments. This one's had a paper cover put on it. The Death of Abel. And cool. Okay. They were religious for the most part. No writing in this one. Trying to find one for you that has J.H. Pratt. That's Josiah again. Here's a Bible. I think that's what that is. Now, this isn't the box I'm looking for. Can I? Mind if I go through like this?
It's okay.
All right. Look at that book. This is the Day of Jubilee, in which we make a general account of all actions before Almighty God. Now, is there a date in this one? March 12th. I don't see a year. Here's how they spelled Christian. They didn't have an S. The Christian reader, I don't know why they didn't. Of Jesus Christ, they had S as an F. Okay. I don't know who wrote that. Some of it's okay. But all I've done is just put these in boxes that are, here's a National Reader, and it's dated, can you read the date?
Yes, 1894.
1834.
1834. Wow.
Yeah. But the family, my father just had these in a cupboard, in his den, and we were not allowed to touch them, look at them, whatever. But here's Josiah Humphrey Pratt, North Weymouth, Massachusetts, 1880. But it's obviously older than that. Or he's put his name into it. Okay, let me try a different one. That's the issue. And my thought was just to preserve them. Whomever is going to take interest in them. I put them in condition. This is Josiah's again. Age 11, 1846. And the book is entitled, let's see if I can find here. It's got a lot of pictures. Oh, it's the New Testament. Here's the New England Primer. Now does that have a date? primer. I'm not sure how they pronounce it. Oh, here, it's kind of interesting. The syllables, easy syllables for children. The alphabet. This is an alphabet of lessons for children. This is a really early book, A Prayer for Children, An Imitation of the Lord's Prayer. But this is a very early one. There are some that are written in that I'm finding. The Colombian creator, variety of original selected pieces. This belonged to Lewis, somebody in Weymouth, 1840. Yeah, I just find these fascinating. I just love to take a look at them every once in a while. Extract from a creation delivered at Boston, March 5th, 1780. But I just love the fact that they kept these and just passed them on. Here's the history of Don Quixote, which I just read with my book club recently, but look at the size of that type if I'd had to read it out of here. How the heck did they do that with candlelight? I can't imagine someplace. With the history of America. I thought that might be interesting to try to read. It was written by principal of the University of Edinburgh. History of America. Book 5, certainly. And okay, lost that cover there. Meditations and Contemplations. 1819. Something written. I'm not sure what. Winter piece. Oh, here. I don't know what these are. I think these were probably things somebody felt were important on certain pages. Well, here, Asa Pratt's book. Now, Asa was, Mary can tell us, Josiah's father, I believe. February 1890. And there were a whole series of these Flavius Josephus books, genuine works of Flavius Josephus. The Antiquities of the Jews. There are 6 books, and I think we've got them all. Yeah, my father was a philatelist. A philatelist is a stamp collector, and he concentrated on the stamps of Newfoundland and developed quite a collection, which he sold. But he wrote 2 different books about his collection. The Pence Issues of Newfoundland, 1857 to 1866, this is part of his collection, and this is the book he wrote about the Pence issues. Well, these are the books. Okay, this is, and you see, he was honored by the Philatelic Society of Canada, and was internationally known. My mother and father would travel to stamp shows all over the world, and he received gold awards at many for his collection. This is the big book that he wrote, The 19th Century Postal History of Newfoundland by Robert Pratt, and published by the Collectors Club in Chicago. And it's a fascinating history. I can't say you asked if my children have read my book. This is what I never sat down in restroom. As Cornelius was so meticulous with all that he wrote, my dad was exactly the same. He would take late, I don't know exactly, but he was the same kind of a person. He would detail, and he would have little tweezers, and he would pick up the stamps carefully and put them where he thought they belonged, and write, write this book. This is an extreme endeavor. But the reason I think I came to the traveling name for the book was that this family traveled. They traveled from England to Weymouth, Massachusetts, where they stayed for over 200 years. They came in what did we finally decide? 1623, and stayed there until my grandfather came to Milwaukee at the turn of the century, in the 19th. So, 20th century. So they did that kind of a travel, but within that time period, Cornelius, of course, traveled all around the world. My family, my father traveled a lot, and Bob and I are traveling a lot. So it became a sort of a travel log in many ways, and which was lots of fun. So Mary got me started. She got me organized. We did the pictures first, I believe, in books. And both my mother and father's pictures, which I had quantity of, we got organized and named and identified and tossed out ones. Nobody ever wanted anyway. And then Mary really did the initial research on where in England they might have come from and where the Pratt family name came from. Changed. So after we got the pictures organized, after we started looking at some of the treasures that have been passed down, I'm looking right now at my great-great-grandfather's portrait and his wife's portrait. Everybody wonders what she was like. And the story about them actually was that the portraits were taken to England to be painted with hair samples and left there by the grandfather, by Cornelius. And then he, I assume, picked them up at some point. But the hair samples were mixed. So she is painted with this very austere black hair. And she had the red hair. He had the black. She had the blue eyes, and he had the dark eyes. So you do wonder, maybe she was not quite as severe as this portrait. That seems to be, if you had a story. And I believe it was correct, because we have hair samples from her that show that people kept hair samples. I'm wearing this little brooch, which is from my great-great-grandfather, 2 grandfathers back. And it's got his woven hair in it. And that's one thing that they did. They made little brooches, they made earrings even out of hair, and something to wear to remember the other person. So that's why I'm wearing that. Okay, so we got beyond looking at all this stuff. And then Mary helped me get an organization to all of this. And I said, I don't want to go back to the Magna Carta, which a lot of people say they want to do. I just wanted to know where in England they came from. And Mary found through the tracing the Pratt family that we came from. The Pratts, who were in Mildenhall, England, were probably, we explored Pilgrim and Puritan, what they probably were, why they came. But they came with a ship that landed in Weymouth, and that's where they stayed. And through many centuries, they were involved in making boots, which was really interesting. And not that early one. What they did exactly. Probably farmed and tried to survive. But the boot trade came down to my grandfather, who then to Milwaukee to work in the Beals Torrey shoe factory. And the Beals were relatives. We've explored that line a little as well. My grandfather lived on what was called Spring Street, which became Wisconsin Avenue, just down the road from the Pabst Mansion, which many are familiar with. Uh, he was, and he married Ruth Levy, who was also on Spring Street with the Levy. And I never got to meet her. She died before I was born, but everyone said she would really enjoyed having granddaughters. Well, my sister and I wish we had a time to meet her. But she traveled with her parents, the Levies, to Africa, Algeria, Morocco, the northern Africa, and kept diaries. And one of the early things that I did was to transcribe one of her diaries. She's very, very difficult to read her information and what she wrote down. But there were some interesting things that she talked about on her trip, although she complained a lot about the dust, the heat, and the whatever. Well, it was a lot to hand them, and they all have very busy lives. Yeah. But I think they are all grateful to the fact that I did this. David, my oldest, is a history teacher and very interested in history. And he's the one that came up with the story in the Grizzly Bear, which was a newspaper that was written in San Francisco that recorded passengers' journey with Cornelius from New York to San Francisco on his boat and around the Horn. And that's in the book. It was, it was a very important thing to find. Dave, I think is probably the most interested because he's had the most time to think about it, because he's a historian. My daughter, Elizabeth, is very busy raising two teenage boys. One to go to college next year, one is in college and having a job and working very hard in marketing, actually. And I think she's very grateful to have it. And she's very attuned to, actually, I think the grandparents, Levy and Pratt, who married more than to the older Pratt part of the family. She loved some of the jewelry that I've given her that was part of Ruth Levy's heritage. And she was enjoying the history. My youngest son, Jim, who lives in Vermont, and his two boys have also exceedingly busy life, as all these kids do. And the two boys that, two of Leslie and Jim's boys, Micah and Noah, are just delightful young men and ask questions every once in a while. And I think as they mature and grow, they will find that knowing something about this history will be important for them too. My father was an only child. There were two stillborn children, and his graves are in Forest Home Cemetery, where he is also. And I think he was a very pampered and taken care of and loved child because of the way he grew up. He went to the German English Academy in Milwaukee and then on to the University of Wisconsin. When he was in ROTC when he was at the University of Wisconsin. And after he graduated, he became a part of the Wisconsin National Guard. And prior to going into the Second World War, the National Guard was sent to Alexandria, Louisiana, where we lived for, I think it was over a year, maybe 2 years, until the bombing of Pearl Harbor. What the National Guard was doing was training for what they knew was going to come, which was going into Europe, and they didn't know Japan at that time. But after Pearl Harbor, that Christmas, I know we came back to Milwaukee, and Father got us settled in a little house living with his father and my mother and my sister and I. And he left for 39 months. We never saw him for 39 months. He went first he was part of intelligence in the National Guard. And he was sent first to New York where they embarked for Ireland. They were in Northern Ireland for several years, where his assignment was, he was an engineer. So he had that kind of a mind, and he was also, he was a really bright guy. And so he was part of intelligence. He helped plan the invasion of D-Day. And they started that whole process in a place called, it was outside of Glasgow, it was Lurgan, Lurgan, North Ireland. And that's where they were stationed. Eisenhower had visited there. I visited the house where they were housed and where we did their planning in Lurgan. It was a great house. And they moved from there to southeastern England, where where they were staging everything for the landing on D-Day. And my dad was on the Ancon, which was the ship that was the control ship for the landing at D-Day. He was on that ship that day, and he landed on D-Day at Omaha Beach, and fortunately survived. He wrote a letter that I thought was most interesting, and we have letters, and they number every single letter. My mother kept every single letter that he wrote. And he wrote to her the night before they landed, night before D-Day. You may not hear from me for a while. I'm going to be kind of busy. So he landed that day, made it to the top of the ridge, went on with the with the 5th Division. He went on to the liberation of Paris, and then from there on to the Battle of the Bulge. He ended his Second World War adventure by delivering the terms of surrender to a German. He had to take a German colonel who was telling the Germans in Czechoslovakia that the war was over and they were stopped by it. And came home after 39 months, and my sister and I, were just stunned by having a man in the house and watching him shave. I can remember that. And thinking, we're glad he's gone. I mean, but certainly it was a different war than we face today with the kind of challenges that we had around the world. But I just know that there's more I want to do. There's more I want to write. And because I think it was not necessarily in a hardbound book, but that I want to get it on paper and give it to my kids and hope that some of them, will treasure it and carry it on, because I don't want it to be lost.